Eugene's with us on the line as well, Tracy. I mean, do you have any issue with staff at Bank of Ireland and AIB being asked to come back into the office a few days a week?
I think it depends on what we think fair is and what the true motivation, for want of a better word, of the employer is. I was reading a study yesterday by a post on Nick Bloom, who's a rather famous Stanford professor, talking about flexible working, hybrid and remote working for years. And what he's noticed is that companies that are on a growth trajectory are typically enabling more working from home, enabling more hybrid working, whereas companies who are, let's say, trying to lower their headcount or keep it flat are starting to swing the way of return to office in a more maximalist fashion.
So you think it's to try and reduce the headcount?
I wouldn't be able to say that directly about AIB, but that has been the pattern so far, not only in Europe, but also in America, that typically a maximalist approach of, look, let's say you were working for an organisation in Dublin, they allowed you to move down to Kerry, and all of a sudden now they're saying, look, 3 to 4 days, which effectively means you need to move back to Dublin. I think that's probably sending a signal.
Because the reality is, I suppose, that for some people who've maybe changed county or bought houses elsewhere in the country, that, you know, they're probably settled in those positions now. They've long commutes. They're probably not too enticed to come back to Dublin working life.
Probably not. And also, you know, when you look at the main beneficiaries of working from home, flexible working, which would be, frankly, it would be women. It'd be people who have children, you know, primary caring responsibilities, etc. It's practically impractical for them, and this kind of tactic has been seen pretty commonly as a way to mitigate headcounts, and that's the way I see it. And it's fascinating in a way in that Dublin has one of the highest office vacancy rates in Europe. It's kind of touching around 19% at the moment, which is fascinating when you look at the housing supply in Dublin. So it's a very tough ask for somebody who is, you know, not even moved down the country, but let's say just actually moved down the country. It's very tough for them to be able to find housing now in Dublin. And a lot of employers are sitting on a lot of empty offices.
You see, and I would have thought a lot of them would have nearly got rid of offices at the moment, you know, the office space. I'm not talking about Bank of Ireland or AIB in particular, but I would have thought for a lot of the big companies that had, you know, now moved to smaller working spaces, that they probably don't want all the staff back in.
No, that's what the data is showing us for growing companies that are growing their headcount. They're realizing that there's a big trade-off now between, you know, where they even still have leases and the availability of talent. And it's a very tough ask right now to if you want to retain talent, it's almost oxymoronic to demand them to move to Dublin at the moment, I believe, with the cost of housing.
Yeah, and this idea of maybe, I know some of the organisations or institutions have talked about there being working hubs in other parts of the country that maybe staff might be able to use and facilitate. Is that a good idea?
I think it is. It follows a more kind of thoughtful activity-based working strategy. So, you know, activity-based working, you know, it sounds highfalutin, but it really is what it says on the tin. You know, if Andrea has been productive down in Kerry all along, and she's got some colleagues in Cork and some colleagues in Limerick, and, you know, either for camaraderie or maybe it's an important meeting that they meet up in Killarney or Mallow or, you know, wherever, that makes a lot more sense than relocating those 3 people permanently to one of the most expensive housing markets in Europe.